Hi there, welcome to the Broken News. I'm your host, Ed Cavett. This is a cafe-style news program where we look at the last few days or week of news and try to figure out what the hell's going on. Today is October 12th, 2020, and let's see what is happening. If you were listening this weekend, you heard that there was a shooting in Denver in the middle of the day between a right-wing protester who got into a verbal altercation with some left-wing protesters, and in the course of the off for a CNN affiliate, that security guard, and I'm going to put quotes around that, ended up shooting this guy here and killing him on the spot. He was arrested not 15 seconds later, which begs the question why the police weren't there in the whole 2 minutes leading up to the exchange that you could hear all the way down the block. So that's going to be a big question that will never come up. So the security guard, it turns out, is not licensed, and here he is looking like he doesn't know what his future is going to hold, which is probably a faithful perspective at this point. Wow. Come on now. That did not have to happen. So let's see how that happens. And of course, where's the outrage? And, people are going to spin it and do this, that, and the other. But what I thought was the takeaway from this is how the police, if they're the ones that are properly trained, presumably, they're the ones who are supposed to be able to identify when something is going to happen, when a crime, they're all the time sticking their nose in saying, oh, a crime is going to happen. Well, here we have a murder getting ready to happen, and the police are just thumbs up their asses. And then this guy he didn't think he was going to come to this thing today and not leave. He thought he was going to leave that day. So we'll find out the story of this later on, but the preliminary reporting is that this guy wasn't necessarily a left wing or right wing. He was just a security guard for some media that was there and felt like Bear Mace was going to kill him. So we'll see how that goes. So I wanted to talk about the main focus, because we're leading up to the election and we're all kind of thinking about voting and what voting means and how we vote and civics and this, that, and the other. Well, I wanted to listen to Chris Hedges was on Katie Halper, and I know however you feel about Katie Halper or Chris Hedges or whatever, it doesn't really matter. Just listen to what is being said, and it's going to lead into a little bit of a talk about how do we vote. I'm not talking about what platform or what candidates. I'm talking about what is our moral center? Who are we focused on when we vote for somebody? Is it selfish? Is it community? Is it nationalism? What is it? So let's hear Chris Hedges' take on him voting his conscience, and then we'll get back.
That Trump will be more damaging.
Sure, but I am not voting for Biden. I haven't voted for Democrats since 2000. A lot of it's personal. I spent months of my life in Gaza. I am not voting for anybody who arms and funds the apartheid state of Israel. I have taught in the prisons for 10 years. I have very close relationships with my students and their families whose lives were devastated because of Joe Biden and Bill Clinton and the Democratic Party. And my loyalty is to them. I suppose it's not practical, but I don't really care. I won't. When I heard Obama give that speech to AIPAC in 2016, might as well have been written by AIPAC. I just can't betray these people. I spent 20 years overseas. This is personal. And, I have to go back to these places. I at least want to, earn the right to ask for their forgiveness. But
let me get my mic back on. That was Chris Hedges voting his conscience. So we got Nancy Pelosi here. She's in California, right? And we've got, Dianne Feinstein. She's there. We got Kamala Harris. She's there in California. Okay. So about California for a second, and we're going to look at this map here. And I'm going to blow this up a little bit so you guys can see what's happening. This is a map of voter apathy. And for some reason, which I think is more than coincidental and particularly auspicious, is that the vote for nobody is in brown. That's something else. That's kind of hard to get over just on the face of it, but let's look past that. So if you voted in an area that has a certain amount of population and everybody registered voters, they vote. If you actually voted, then you're represented by a color of red or blue, depending on whether you voted Republican or Democrat, right? Well, then where there's populations of people that didn't vote, that's represented by brown. And it's really interesting that we have thousands and thousands of homeless people here in Southern California represented by this clown here. Let me pull up these clowns. So when California voted for nobody, that's who they voted for right there. Because she's not helping them. She's not helping them. And you know, they talk like they do. They act like they do. They sound like they're concerned. But then when you look at the voting and how they actually treated people over their career, you find out that it's in stark contrast to what they're actually telling people. And I am one of those who believes in actions speak louder. And apparently a lot of people do, because they voted for nobody and they got nobody. So why is this apathy here? Why is there so much brown on this map? And then look at where the red is. That's going to tell you why there's no votes in these brown areas, because where you have resources, and there's a power class attached to those resources. So down here in Texas, you've got oil and you've got minerals. Here in the Great Plains, you've got oil and you've got agriculture. Up here, in the north, you've got minerals, and in the Midwest, you've got agriculture and all these different things. Along the coast, you have tourism, and then you get to the east, you have more financial, and there's a large population of intransigent wealth, legacy wealth there that always votes Republican. And then in places where it's resource poor, where the people aren't tied to the resources, you can see that there's no representation. So in New Mexico, Arizona, parts of Nevada, California, they're not, some of those places aren't population dense, and what populations are there aren't represented by the main branches of politics. So they're left out. Who do they vote for? Well, they're left to vote for nobody. So when it comes to voting your conscience, when it comes to voting, we're told in civics class that you have these candidates and you vote for the one that most closely represents you. And that's just a very basic, seminal representation of what voting means. Is it a personal thing? Do you vote if that person represents, is going to make your life better, make your life and your family lives better, and you don't care about anybody else down the street or across the way, the next town, next state? You don't care. All you're concerned with, and I'm just asking the question, is this candidate going to help me and my family? And if so, I'm voting for them. That's one way we can vote. Now, we can vote like for community. I'm going to vote even at my own expense, even if it costs me or doesn't make my life particularly better directly. If I raise people up in my community, in my state, in my nation, then that should help me secondarily. So I would vote for community, for state, for the nation. What would help the most people? Try to make sure that my vote has a maximum potential for benefiting people. That's kind of how I vote, and that's another way of voting. When you think of voting, you have to think of how politicians look at that vote too. So we have politicians who are so dedicated to their constituency, they just do not care about anything else. The rest of the United States could burn as long as the people who put me in office are doing okay. That's all that matters. Politicians like that stay in office for a long time because they do well for their people. But when you look at their record on a national level, it's been really harmful and really detrimental. So that's just something that you want to watch out for when you're voting for somebody. Is like, is this person going to be dedicated to me, like almost on a personal level, or is he going to be more civics minded and kind of spread the benefits out, take into account other people? Well, when we get politicians like that, you end up with referendums because they won't do what the people want them to do. So the people have to go around them and do it themselves. So I voted to put you there. I want some help back. If not help for me, then I want help for my community or for my nation. At the very least, I don't want things to be worse for the maximum amount of people. And that's what we have when we have this fake political system in our country, these fake candidates who will tell you anything and then do the exact opposite. That's why we see all this brown, all of this nobody vote here. Because they're truly, the people are voting for who they have to vote for, which is nobody. And that's a vote. Nobody is a vote. They made a map for it right here. It counted. Whenever you have the lesser of two evils kind of situation when it comes to voting, what that really means is I am making you choose, but I am not giving you a choice. So in that case, it doesn't matter, just random. Just randomly vote for whoever. Why have a democratic representative republic if I'm always faced with the lesser of two evils? That's going to be a hard problem to get over because it doesn't matter if you vote or not. It's like you're never represented. So even though you're voting and you're doing what you're supposed to and you vote for the people that say that they're going to help you, they never do. It never works out. And I feel like it's almost deliberate just to take the voice away from the people, or at least the illusion that you have a voice. Because if you feel like you have a voice, you'll go to the polls, you'll do the civics thing, it'll be peaceful relatively. But once you get to the point where you don't feel like you have a voice, where you can't trust your leadership, this is a really dangerous thing. And in other countries, what happens is that some power faction will come in, see the sentiment of the people, and take over. And that's what we're seeing with President Trump. People felt like they weren't being represented, and they just, let's see how this works out. Well, we see how it works out. It really didn't. If we had voted for Hillary in 2016, I don't think we would have come out any better. Honestly, we wouldn't have really done any better. It would have still been the same shitstorm. It would have still been the power class calling all the shots. In spite of the medical experts, in spite of the science, what's better than science is money. What's better than medical experts is money. To the power class, money is better than everything. And it doesn't matter what else anybody feels, thinks, believes, does. Money is that's the God. And the people on the bottom, the people who have nobody to vote for, that idea is completely out of the question. I mean, people don't have resources to even have a home. In Southern California, there's thousands and thousands of homeless people. Will they ever be represented? Will they ever vote? Where are they going to get their ballot? They're living in the street. This is a voice. Once you get thousands, tens of thousands of people, that's a voice. That matters. We lose our minds over 5 people getting shot in a mass shooting. We don't know any of those people. They could have all been assholes. We don't know. They could have been saints. We don't know. The point is that we feel like they're a victim of some kind of heinous perpetration. And then the tens of thousands of people who were on the streets because they were bamboozled by banks and screwed over by the government and everything else, they're not people. They don't count. They don't have a voice. And if somebody lit them on fire, we'd say what an atrocity it was. But, they may as well be on fire right now, because what kind of life is it? Voter apathy. When you vote, do you vote for yourself? Well, I kind of vote for myself, but I like to think about those 10,000 or 20,000, 30,000 homeless people, 100,000 homeless people. Who knows what it is? It's too many. those people that don't have a voice. I'm tired of looking at them. I'm tired of seeing the misery and the suffering, the needless, pointless suffering. I'm tired of looking at it. Everybody else should be tired of looking at it too, but no one wants to do anything about it. And when you vote, it's for nobody. So that's part of the news there and my rant on that. I think that's pretty much it for the news. We've got the judicial hearings with the Senate and the nomination. Here's the thing about the Supreme Court I wanted to talk about too. It's basically a pointless branch of government. It's run by corporatists. It's seated by corporatists whose interests lie in deciding in the corporation's favor. And at this point, as long as corporations are considered people with a voice like people have, we don't have a government at all. We have a corporatocracy that holds all of the power, has all the strings, calls all the shots, and that's never been made more apparent than what it is now. So they can put Amy Coney Island in the Supreme Court. No one cares because it's really not going to do anybody any good, and things are only going to get worse whether it's her or anybody else. So it doesn't matter. As far as if it's the president's choice or not, yeah, it's the president's choice. He has the right to nominate. He was elected for 4 years. His 4 years ain't up. Doesn't matter if it's 3 weeks to go. Doesn't matter. The hypocrisy back when it was Obama, doesn't matter. None of that matters. What matters is that that's the president's prerogative. If the Senate, if the people don't want that, then they have a chance to sign off on that too. And if both branches are held by the same party, then that's what people voted for 3 years ago or 4 years ago. And when I say people voted for, I'm talking about these reds and blues. I'm not talking about all the browns, the nobody votes here of people that weren't represented. If you guys would get to the polls and vote, even if you're voting for a jerk, even if you're voting for the lesser of two evils, at the very least it's going to say, look, these people vote. There's a chance they can vote me out of office. I might try to listen to them a little bit more, but if you don't go and vote, these politicians don't care about you at all. They don't care about you when you do vote. They're really not going to care about you when you don't vote. So if you're in these brown areas, I would suggest you get your asses in gear and at least let the power class know, I'm going to vote. I'm going to let it known that as soon as somebody comes along that wants my vote and is going to earn it and do what they say, I'm voting for them. They're not going to get buried by the power class like they have in the past because the people that would vote for them didn't even show up. That's going to change. It's really going to change because we can see now what happens when we don't. These fools, these fiends, these cretins take over, and then hundreds of thousands of Americans die, whether it's from COVID, whether it's from a dozen wars on the other side of the planet. It doesn't matter. Americans end up dying. The opioid crisis, the drug wars, all that stuff is Americans dying, American citizens dying because of the choices of the power class and our leaders that no one will vote for or out. So get it in gear, voter apathy. We really need to get that vote out, and we really need to think about why we're voting and who we're voting for and where that moral center is, because it's really never been more important. If we don't make this work, the U.S. is going to be a failed state. And it's going to turn into Brazil. It's going to turn into some place where corruption and gangs and mobs are in control of everything, and the rest of us are just slaves to that. It's almost that point now. So if we see it go all the way, we'll just continue to do the things we've been doing and see how they don't work. Well, that's it for the Broken News, October 12th, 2020. If you like this, give me a thumbs up. If you don't, let me know why. Thumbs down, tell me I suck. Whatever it is, feedback's the best, good or bad. And I have lots of other videos that talk about things, so give those a look if you get a chance. And just try to do what you can to change the world. Until next time, take care.